Good morning. It is wonderful to look out and see so many people here today. We really appreciate the continued engagement of many of you environmental professionals with our network, as well as the students and the engaged citizens that show up. I know some of you are regulars and some of you are infrequent participants, and some of you this is your first time, so welcome, and we'd love to explain more about what the EPN is all about as you get to know us better if you're a newcomer. Before we launch today's panel, I did want to share a few comments. We have quite a few announcements to share with you related to the EPN, and I can sort of say this time of year is always a fun one. It gets quiet during the winter break, but then when the students come back, it is alive, and this spring we're excited about the number of students that we're going to be launching out through graduation in April. So we're excited, or May, we're excited to have everyone here. One thing I did want to share with you, it's wonderful, I was sharing with some other folks, this is the highest number of pre-registrations we've ever had for an EPN. So typically it's a, water quality turns them out, but climate change this time really brought you out. So we appreciate that. We've been doing this is our 7th year, and I think this beats our previous record, which was when we had the ODA, the ODNR, and the EPA directors all on the stage at the same time. So this rate's up there is a big one. It's important to see all of you turning out like this too. I don't know if you feel like me, a sense of urgency about some of the challenges ahead of us. It's very critical for you to become engaged, and we appreciate your participation in this. With many of you that have been here before, you know with the EPN that one of our goals is to sort of like launch the next generation of students out in the world while also serving the existing environmental professionals. I can tell you that in the school's case with the spring semester, we're already looking to the fall. One of the exciting tidbits I want to share with you just to let you know that things are happening. In 2009, we had 143 applications to the School of Environment and Natural Resources. As of last week, we had 480 students that had applied to the school, and we are not yet done with this application cycle. So we are up about 300% in number of students that are showing an interest in coming to the School of Environment and Natural Resources. What makes that particularly remarkable is historically the environmental sciences have been what we call a discovery major. That is, students don't even know this is an option to sort of pursue this course of study until they get to Ohio State. But we're finding many students that are discovering us before they even come, and they're choosing their university based on their interest in studying this. So I just want to let you know that as we get this number of students here and you continue to be our ambassadors, we're going to rely on you to help us launch these students too, because we're all in this together. I always hope that there's a tipping point where eventually we're going to take climate change serious as a society, and it's important that we all work together on this. So your assistance in helping launch our students is great. We do have a number of students here today, I think. Could you raise your hands? If you get a chance, just step up and say hello to them and sort of give them a little wisdom of your own. We really appreciate what you have to share with them. I also want to note that we're delighted today to be hosting 10 students from Otterbein. Special thanks to Terry Hermison for working with Joe and the EPN team to bring your students to today's program. Would the Otterbein students please raise their hand? So it doesn't look like 10, but there are a couple here. I also want to share with you some changes in our EPN structure, just as an FYI. Many of you have attended for the last 18 months, have interacted with Molly Berger out at the front desk. Molly is actually going to be leaving us at the end of this week to join our college advancement team working on alumni relations. We're going to be sad to see Molly go, but she's been a great champion for the EPN and sort of done a lot of the legwork that's made these breakfasts successful. As Molly prepares to leave us, though, I'm excited to share with you that we have hired Nicole Jackson. Please stand and wave, Nicole. I think I saw her just a few minutes ago. Nicole's right over here. Some of you met her before. She is an alumni of our school, and she's also worked with our Career Services Office. She's conducted research with our AV ecologists, and she's worked on the Youth Beat radio program. She joins Joe, and she brings a lot of great ideas. I can tell you that we're excited about her addition, as she's going to be 3/4 time focused specifically on the EPN. This is an expansion of our sort of commitment to the EPN, and I can tell you that the reason this is possible is because of the generous donations of previous entities committed to the environment. We're relying on the Bob Teeter Endowment Fund. For some of you old school folks, Bob Teeter was a former leader of the environmental or natural resource movement in the state of Ohio, and the Barnaby Fund, which is actually, if some of you maybe actually attended the Barnaby Center when it existed. So we're very reliant on those development resources to help us expand this program for your benefit. This spring also we have a chance to interact with Itzel Alvarez Garcia and Lillian Ostrander, 2 current undergrad students who will support the EPN at the registration table, so we're delighted to have them helping us out as well. Because I know this might be the first EPN for many of you, I invite you to sign up for our program to get announcements of it, epn.osu.edu. It's on your program. You can actually go there and easily enroll and get future communications. We do keep it at a minimum. We are looking to improve our communications efforts, so if you sign up, you'll get just occasional messages from us, but I think they'll be packed with useful information for you. One specific improvement we're looking forward to rolling out, and this is really sort of targeted at Generation Z, is we're going to be actually having some more videos, and we've started to show these to you in our events, and we're excited about our ability to produce and share on our EPN YouTube channel. So we have a YouTube channel, and you can sort of see stuff there. I'm delighted, too, that Dr. Brooke White, Air Quality Program Coordinator at Morpsey, and Cassidy Jenny, who graduated from our school last year and is now an ambassador for Smart Columbus, are both working with Joe and Nicole to develop a series on air quality that will be posted on that YouTube channel in the near future. For over a year now, the EPN has worked with Mary Lachiski. The phonetics here I have off, but she's with the Facilities Operations Development Team at Ohio State to help make each of our events a zero waste event. Wave your hand, Mary. I apologize for butchering your name. Mary's right over here, so I apologize for that, Mary. Thanks to you and the student interns for making this zero waste activity happen each month. Please help us reduce our environmental footprint and enhance our reuse of materials by paying close attention to the bins and where you should place stuff. At our December program, we diverted 12 pounds of materials out of the landfill and into our composting system. We collectively produced 1 pound of trash and 1 pound of recycling. I'm always impressed with the students that sort of spend their time sorting this out and weighing it. So thank you for doing that and giving us the data here. Let's strive to sort of make this a zero waste event, and please help us out by using the receptacles accordingly. Okay, so now moving on to our program. Late last year, the U.S. Global Change Research Program released its 4th National Climate Assessment. This report identified several weather-related challenges that will impact our Midwest region, including an increased prevalence of flooding, drought, and an expansion of the urban heat island effect in cities like Columbus. In the lobby, we've tried to highlight the work of some organizations working to address these challenges, including Ohio State student chapter of the Sierra Club, who shared about some of their climate change policy suggestions. I understand they're going to be having some additional conversation after today's event about this too. We were also joined in the lobby by Columbus Green Drinks, who will be hosting their first event of 2019 tomorrow night in this building. If you have questions about their event, please reach out to Klaus Eckert with Green Drinks Columbus. It is great to look out and see so many fellow Central Ohioans here interested in this conversation. I want to give a shout out to Christina O'Keefe, who actually suggested this topic to us. If you have future topics you want to share with us, please let us know, but it's because of Christina's willingness to sort of volunteer this topic and help work with us that we're able to host this panel today. We've assembled here a group of people that will shine some light on what steps our local leaders for both public and private organizations are taking to address climate change. To introduce our speakers and provide regional perspective on sustainability is William Murdoch. You can read a brief professional bio for William in today's brochure. I'm delighted to invite William to our panel today. He's actually been up here, I think this is his 3rd or 4th time speaking to the EPN, and we're so delighted to have such a great resource in our community. Please welcome William Murdoch.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp, and thanks to the organizers. Thanks to all of you for turning out this morning. This is an important topic and one that I'm excited for us to talk about. Dr. Sharp, you mentioned the urgency around the topic and how that might be affecting admissions. I think you should be a little less modest. I think the quality of the programs at the school and the work that's going on by the students and the faculty is something that is really generating a lot of buzz to increase that too. I say that too, I'm a little bit biased because I'm an alumnus of the School of Environment and Natural Resources, and I always like to point out my advisor, Dr. Heywood, is here, who got me where I am today, so thank you, Dr. Heywood. Today's panel is about our local response to a global challenge of climate change, and I think, like Dr. Sharp said, it's easy to get down. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and feel like nothing is happening when you look at some of the global dialogue going on this issue. But today's guests, I hope, are going to give you a little bit of perspective, a little bit of hope, and maybe a little bit of motivation that local efforts are happening in Central Ohio. They're actually happening pretty robustly. Everything from technology to environmental quality, local governments, business leaders are all moving on this issue. And so it's something that, as you listen to the speakers today, remember that. Remember when the problem seems undaunting and overwhelming, there's some really good work happening, and I know that a number of us in this room are all working on this too as environmental professionals. So collectively, we're gonna get this. So I want a chance to introduce my organization, and then we'll get into the panel. I work as the Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, which is a regional council of local governments. Think of us more as technical advisors to local governments and regional leaders on things like sustainability and transportation and data. We're a nonpartisan group, but we work with people across the political spectrum here in Central Ohio. And I'll tell you about some of the major efforts that we have going on here regionally, just to whet your appetite a little bit. I should note, too, I've got a number of my employees and former employees in the room. And so we've got experts here who know it better than I do. And so I appreciate them for all their work as well. So that's what MORPC does. We cover the whole spectrum: transportation, data, energy and air quality, planning, sustainability, and we also advocate at the local level and state level and federal level too. Sustainability is at the core of what we do. We actually have adopted a regional sustainability agenda. If you haven't looked at this, it lays out measurable metrics around sustainability, from air quality to energy to water to growth and more. We also serve as the region's umbrella organization for a number of the committees working on these issues, so public-private partnerships, talking regularly about sustainability issues and how we can advance them. And I know some of you sit on those committees, so thank you for being a part of that conversation. We also believe not in just talking about sustainability, but measuring it and being honest and open about what we're accomplishing. And so we publish a report card on sustainability. You can go and see what we said we were going to do and check our progress, and then that opens the dialogue on what we need to do more and how we can focus on these issues more. If you think your local government's not doing anything in Central Ohio, you're probably wrong. We have over 30 local governments, including Columbus and Franklin County, who are working on sustainability agendas of their own. They're measuring it, they're competing against each other, they're getting recognized for it, and that's through a program called Sustainable 2050 that we help to coordinate. I wanted to mention, this says the 2018 Summit on Sustainability. We're already planning the 2019 Summit on Sustainability every October. We get about 500 community leaders together and students and more. If you haven't been to one, it is an all-day event that really focuses the attention on local efforts with a little bit of global and national inspiration. Transportation is what we're known for in a lot of circles, and this too is impacted by our sustainability views. We help coordinate several $billion in federal dollars in transportation. This covers more sustainable modes of transportation. We have specific initiatives. We've helped work with CODA and others on funding the Downtown Transit Pass program, which 45,000 people have free access to transit. We're working on a bold plan for 500 miles of bike trails in the region. All of these things tie up into sustainability and how we can help improve it here in the region. We've also been working on growth. I know there's been a session on Insight 2050 before. Our director, Kirsten Carr, is here too. We're looking at growth in Central Ohio. Unlike a lot of other regions, we're growing and we're growing quickly. We're looking at how to get ahead of this growth, not just from an infrastructure standpoint, but from greenhouse gases and water resources and air quality and health. When you know that and hear that Central Ohio is growing, know that the region's leaders are looking at sustainability as a lens for how we can grow in a way that improves our quality of life, but also takes into the quality of our environment into account. And two other quick things, especially because my two experts are in the room. John Paul DeVers is our energy planner at MORPC. We're working on energy planning. We've got a partnership with local utilities on how we can help local governments and others save on energy and energy efficiency. We're actually administering programs in people's homes to improve energy efficiency. We've done a study that Jim's going to talk about, so I'm just whetting their appetite, Jim. I don't want you to worry. And we work on water quality and air quality. Our Dr. Brooke White is our air quality expert, and we actually monitor and work on solutions for air quality here in Central Ohio, which is becoming more and more of a challenge as climate change continues to add unpredictability into the environment. So that's just a little taste of what we're doing at MORPC. If you're a student, we do have internships, so come and talk to us. If you're a professional, hopefully you're serving on one of our committees or work with us. So I want to get into the panel today. I know these three speakers well, and I'm excited about them. I know that all of their bios are on the brochures on your table, but I want to let you know just a little bit about each of them. Each of them are sustainability champions that aren't just getting attention for their job, at their job, they're also leading nationally. When you look at folks like Jim Schimmer at Franklin County, he's looking at the first energy plan for a county. that covers the scope and impact of supply and demand. He's led sustainability. He's a huge advocate for sustainable energy and other things. Elena Shockley is leading sustainability efforts at the city of Columbus. This is the largest city in Ohio and the 14th largest in the country. It just went up a little bit. The work that's going on at Columbus is getting attention from their blueprint to their work in energy and utilities, their sustainability efforts in transportation. There's a lot going on, and Elena's at the heart of it all and is a great advocate for that. Notably, both of them are on our Sustainability Advisory Committee, and Jim is the chair, so that's a cool thing. And we have Jordan Davis from the Smart Columbus Partnership. If you haven't heard about Smart Columbus, I'm not going to steal her thunder. This is a leading effort globally on how to take sustainable advanced mobility solutions and use it to improve things like the climate and things like our neighborhoods, and it's really exciting. The last thing I'll say is a fun tidbit. You've got their bios. Jim Shimmer is notably our chair of sustainability, but once upon a time, he actually climbed to the top of a radio tower in North Dakota. And I'm hoping it was to save a cat or something like that, but we'll let him tell you. It's fun to be in the 4-H Center because Elena is actually a lifelong 4-H member. So think about that. Think about the impact of this organization and how she's been a part of it. And Jordan, if you don't know it, you should go on YouTube. Once upon a time as an Ohio Stater, she coordinated the flash mob at the Ohio Union. If you ever saw that, back when flash mobs were really, really big, she was at the heart of the big one at the Ohio Union. So if you need a flash mob, you got your person. So I'm going to let each of our speakers come up, and then we'll get into a moderated discussion. And so let's give them a round of applause before they get started. And let's welcome Jim Schimmer.
Well, good morning, EPNers, you beautiful people. I like the idea that the applause was before the presentation, at least in my case. That's always a good thing. Thank you, William. Good morning. Let me move on here. Let's see. My name is James Schimmer, and I'm from government. I'm proud of it, and I'm here to help inform you. So I do have a disclaimer this morning. It's a very important part of my speech that this will be a no lies, no bullpoop, non-outrageous, factual, climate change believing presentation. So you all know that's where I'm coming from. I've been the director of Franklin County's Economic Development and Planning Agency since 2006. My agency is responsible for the economic development and planning of approximately 30% of Franklin County. Those are the areas that are not incorporated in either a city or a village or a city like Columbus or other municipalities or jurisdictions like towns and villages. One of the first things the commissioners did when I was hired in 2006 was to adopt Resolution 68306, which established the environmental policy for Franklin County. On this particular slide, you can see some of the basic tenets of the things that we have been working on. These are working beliefs that we operate on. So when you think about Franklin County, I hope you will understand that, yes, there is actually an environmental policy in place that drives a lot of our actions and a lot of what we do. But my goal is really to push the envelope in these areas because I believe our county's best years lie ahead of us. And that there is an economic development opportunity in that specific concept of enhancing the quality of life for our residents. A prime example of the work that we do and have done is actually the work we've done on the Franklin County Energy Study. So I want to talk a little bit about this. It's not going to be super in-depth, but I think I will hopefully be able to get across some of the things that are part of this particular study. Until 2018, there had never been a public study done on energy generation and usage within Franklin County. Yes, I'm sure the utilities knew what was happening, the general public maybe not so much, but at Franklin County we do not do all things, and what I mean by that is we just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to do everything. And so one of the things we've done to make sure that we could tap into the best people, tap into the newest information, is to really work with partners. And that's one of the things that I think our agency, Economic Development and Planning, has done a nice job of. But you got to have really sound, trusted partners out there in the community, and MORPC has definitely been one of those organizations. So it has been with MORPC that we've gone through this mission of looking at the energy study for Franklin County. And William mentioned a few people here, but you have to have experts to help you along in this area. And so Christina O'Keefe was mentioned a little earlier. Brandy Whetstone, I know, is out here in the audience. But John Paul DeVersa has been the expert that's guided us and led us through this. I by no means am an expert in energy, although I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express. That's a small joke. But the key thing is that I have learned myself just by being exposed to John Paul's knowledge of the field and some of the things that we've talked about. So it's been a great process and one that has turned out some things. Because of the government shutdown, my slides are really terrible. I'm going to use that as an excuse. I am not a very good PowerPoint person, but you know, I would say to you is at the end of the presentation, I think some of these will probably be online somewhere and you'll be able to get a little clearer copy of these things. But why was this study conducted? Well, perhaps the most important aspect was the fact that it establishes a baseline. So again, remember, this hadn't been done before. So in 2018, we can honestly say now that we have a baseline to look at how energy is used. The world runs on energy and growing amounts of energy, so it's critical to be able to see ahead and understand our position in the future. And there is a spoiler alert here, I'll just give it to you right now. In my opinion, the future is not going to be built on large, centralized, coal-fired power plants. That is an important thing that I think as we start to look forward, we need to really understand. We are expecting over 1 million people in Central Ohio by 2050. The majority of that growth is likely to occur in Franklin County. So how do we start thinking about a different future? Well, it starts by documenting where we are currently, and that's exactly what we've done with this study. So what did we learn? It's important to understand that there's some really positive things, and I was really happy that William put this all on a positive note. Some days I wake up and I don't feel so positive. But I think in this particular area, I think we've done some things that have been good. So let me talk just a quick second about what's been going on. But be assured that there is good news in this study. And first, we use our energy well, and actually we do better on a national average when it comes to the amount of income that gets generated by energy. So think about that for a second. It's hard to imagine, you know, if you were 150 years ago, you wouldn't have ever really thought that energy was responsible for your income. But to some degree, all of our jobs really, in one way, shape, or form, now rely on energy. So when it comes to the amount of income generated per unit of energy consumed, we're better than the national average. That's one thing we learned. Secondly, amazingly, the amount of harmful emissions is actually dropped while our population has increased. That tells me something good is happening, and that actually that good is focused in on the fact that this illustrates one of my fundamental premises for you this morning. And that's basically that it's solving environmental problems through the use of better technology is in fact an economic development opportunity that we can all use here in Franklin County. The idea that technology has helped reduce harmful emissions is a really positive thing, I think. Finally, customers are demanding from the utilities that they provide programs relating to energy efficiency, and the utilities have responded by offering a variety of new initiatives to reduce energy consumption, such as AEP's smart metering program and Columbia Gas's warm choice program. So those are all of the really positive things. But there are a few things that are not necessarily positive. That's a theme from Jaws, by the way. There are a few things that we really found that I think are important for you to know that are not the good things necessarily as part of this process. There are a number of central city neighborhoods where residents are paying a disproportionate share of their earnings on energy. And thus, yes, you can get it. What does that lead to? It leads to increasing poverty rates. One of the things that I can say that I feel really, I guess actually proud of in a way, is that Franklin County, along with the city of Columbus, has really looked at this issue of poverty. We have a rising per capita income. Great, right? How does it work that there are more people in poverty than there ever have been before in the city and the county? It doesn't really match up too well. So one of the things is burdens. You know, everybody has these burdens, and one of those burdens is an energy burden. The point that energy burden is not only restricted to inner city residents, but it hurts people that are on fixed incomes, seniors, for example. When their energy rates go up, they don't have extra dollars to pay for it. They are on a fixed income, so it hurts them. But one of the things when we talk about poverty is really to understand those things that cause poverty. Now, the crux of my presentation this morning on Franklin County energy has got a couple of points, specifically 2 points that I want to make. The dollars we spend on energy actually leave Franklin County for the places that that energy is being generated. So that's an important thing. And secondly, related to that, the majority of energy generated is actually wasted due to inefficiencies in transmission and use. In fact, approximately 69% of the energy that is actually generated is never used. It's lost in transmission, it's lost in the inefficiency of vehicles, transportation vehicles, lighting and air conditioning, heating. So the point is that we need to do a better job of looking at that. And I think it's really an important fact. One of the things that I had was that, in essence, we're really using about 30% of that power in the best way we can. So I will challenge you to say, isn't it an economic development opportunity to raise that number to 50%, to 70%, 75%, and the ultimate goal of every ounce of energy that we generate, we use. And that, to me, seems like an opportunity for us in Central Ohio. So where are we headed? A number of things here that I will mention this morning that are positive things that we will look at moving forward. And I know and I hope everybody in this room will eventually be involved in one of these things or several of these things. So job training, for example, the idea of employing people to learn new technologies and then put those technologies in place. The concept of energy efficiency, we can save money. Anybody in this room want to save money? Oh, I bet you all do. I know I do. I like to save money. It's a good thing. But energy is an opportunity to do just that, and energy efficiency is a critical component part. Energy parity. The energy parity idea is the establishment of a goal, in essence, that no one pays more than 5% of their income on energy as we move forward. What our study found is that there are several Central City Columbus neighborhoods that are paying a disproportionate share, again, going back to that whole poverty issue. Now that relates to some other things. For example, the age of structures, right? Central City started out first. The structures generally in the Central City are older, but if you believe in historic preservation, if you believe in heritage conservation, you believe that those buildings provide good neighborhoods and sound places to live, we have to figure out ways to make those more efficient. And that's going to be up to you guys, and I guess I'm counting on it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. The reduction, this is kind of a simple one, but the reduction of single occupancy vehicles and commutes, the adoption of EVs, electric vehicles, and sorry folks, EVs are great and we're going to be doing something with them, but we also need to think about mass transit, okay? And the idea of what are the alternative forms of mass transit. We're already seeing those on our riverfront with the work that Jordan's been doing, some autonomous vehicles, but that thinking is something that we have to really consider and work on hard. And finally, let's wake up the private sector. This is coming from a guy who does economic development. Hopefully I'll have a job tomorrow morning, but I want to just, all I'm saying is this private sector is doing an excellent job. Here's my point. Rickenbacker. Everybody hopefully in this room understands where Rickenbacker is and what it is. It's a global logistics park. There are over 80 million square feet of rooftop space down at Rickenbacker. Anybody tell me how much solar is on that rooftop? There's not a single solar panel down there. How can that possibly be? So when we look at that, that again ends up to be a great opportunity. So as we are understanding this morning, as I've told you, we're getting most of our power, not most, the majority of our power, 98% of our power from outside of Franklin County. Doesn't it seem wise that 1 gigawatt of local renewable energy would mean a 19% increase in the power that we generate right here in Franklin County that we're responsible for? The concept of microgrids, I think, is going to be important as time goes on. These are some of the targets that we've set, and these are possible things. You know, this is all aspirational, but my point is I want to make sure that you understand that we are thinking about that golden apple, the thing that we're trying to get to, 29,000 clean energy sector jobs, 25% sustainable modes of transportation, 10% of the EV adoption rate, and 1 gig of solar combined heat and power and energy storage. These are targets that we've set as part of our energy study. The impact, quadruple clean energy employment, $348 million in annual energy savings, $500 million in additional economic development and activity, and 19% electricity generation from clean energy. So, here's the question for you all this morning. How many of you want a worse quality of life for future generations than you have currently? Okay, we have no hands raised in this room. Okay, then we agree, right? So let's get off our butts, let's get busy, and let's do something about our future. And finally, thank you very much for having me here, and remember to vote in 2020. Should I advance this?
And I just advance by pushing it. Morning, everyone. My name's Elena Shockley. As William told you, I am the Assistant Director of Sustainability for the City of Columbus. So my job is to do the stuff and to help get the City of Columbus off our butts to get this work done and to get the rest of you to do the same. So today I'm going to give you a little bit more information about where the City of Columbus is on our climate planning and where we're going. We have 12 years to make a big impact in this area. The IPCC report that came out in October told us that. And so the good news is the IPCC report also told us that we have all the technology that we need at our fingertips to make that happen. It's really about changing the way that we operate as municipal organizations, the way we operate as businesses, and the way we operate as educational institutions to really start to drive things. And as Jim mentioned, it's important to tell our leaders, both on the city level, the state, and the federal level, that this is important to us. Because in order to make the changes that we want to make, it doesn't take just the local work that we're going to talk about today, but there are things that have to happen at the state and federal level if we're really going to do the work that we need to do to be successful in this area. So, the City of Columbus. Our goal is to move from vulnerability to resilience. And we are so fortunate, and there's many people in the audience that we owe a great deal of gratitude to for this work. In 2016, we worked with GLISA to start putting together a climate change in Columbus vulnerabilities analysis. And that goal was to take us from having our head in the sand to knowing what challenges and obstacles are ahead. We learned from that report that we've got certain vulnerabilities related to rising temperatures and increasing precipitation, and that we need to plan for those things. And so then we sat as a city and we said, well, what are we going to do about this? And thank goodness Polar Bird came in and started to help us think about how are we going to adapt. So back in the back of the audience, we've got Jason Cervenek and Aaron Wilson, who worked if you guys want to stand up just for a moment, we do owe a debt of gratitude to them. They put together what is the Columbus Climate Action Plan. But we can't just adapt, like the IPCC report says. We have to change. We have to change the way we consume energy and the way that we generate energy. If we're going to take the bold action that we need to take to make it so that this planet is a planet that our children and our grandchildren can live in. So the first step, as I mentioned, is adaptation. Adaptation is taking you from vulnerability to resilience. And the way that we are doing that with the Columbus Adaptation Plan is Polar Bird helped us to identify 43 necessary and aspirational actions that the city of Columbus should take in order to prepare ourselves for our climate future. So it's going to be hotter, it's going to be wetter. What are you, as a city of Columbus, going to do to prepare for those things? And this is fresh off the presses. It was finalized in December. The city now has the hard work ahead of them of internalizing this into the city's practices and really working hard. The city has for decades worked on preparedness. We haven't always thought about it as climate change. We've thought about it as other things like making sure that our residents are safe from flooding events, making sure that our residents have a place to go when their air conditioning isn't sufficient. But what climate change does is it explains why the city has been having to make adjustments in the way that they operate. And then change. Change is, how do you move toward more renewable energy? How do you move toward greater energy conservation? So the Climate Adaptation Plan, 43 actions. It's very hard for me to talk about each one of the 43 actions. I assume that you may have some questions about what those actions are. Polar Bird has broken them down into convenient categories related to what our climate change challenges are, and then some specific sectors like vulnerable populations. The intersection, as Jim mentioned, between pollution and poverty is a really interesting one here in the city of Columbus, and one that Mayor Ginther is really committed to trying to find a solution to. In our opportunity neighborhoods, we often find that we have deficits that do not exist in some of our other neighborhoods. Particularly when we talk about energy burden, that's an issue. So on climate adaptation, I categorize the work that we've got to do into 5 categories, and that's partner. In Franklin County, Central Ohio, we are so lucky to have a wealth of partners that are interested in this. The fact that we've got so many people in this room today shows how lucky we are, but to truly have an impact at scale, the city, the county cannot act alone on this. Everyone has to work together in order to make the changes that we need to make. The second is advocate, and I mentioned that earlier as well. There are many countervailing forces at the state and federal level that impact our ability to make the energy efficiency updates that we really need to make in our building code to have the success at scale that we need to have. And so what our adaptation plan says is that it's important for the city and for residents and for businesses to advocate to our officials to make the changes that we need to make to have the progress that we want to have. Inform and educate. The city of Columbus has a signature environmental program led by Dave Celebrezzi, who is also back there in the audience, that is dedicated to informing and educating on environmental issues. Energy conservation is one, so is water conservation. I'm not going to try to name them all because when I start down that road, I get in trouble. But the importance of letting folks know about this issue, but also informing and educating folks when they're in areas of risk so that we can work towards risk reduction. If you're in a flood zone, informing and educating residents of that, or if you're in an area that has other areas of risk. So we as a city have a deep history of informing and educating. We work with Jennifer at Franklin Soil and Water to inform and educate. But this just gives us another overlay of the types of things that we need to do to inform and educate others. Implement. So this is the get off your butts thing, right? Plans are great, but implementing those plans is critical to getting this work done. And then track. We know that keeping good track of the costs associated with climate change helps us to advocate for future funding for the climate change preparedness that we need to do. So that is, in a very condensed nutshell, what our climate adaptation plan is. And it is meant to be not just something for the city of Columbus, although it has some great recommendations that Polar Bird put together for the city of Columbus, but it's also for residents, businesses, and all community members to understand what the threat is of climate change and how we can adapt to climate change, knowing that there are certain negative impacts of climate change that will happen, whether we like it or not at this point. So next, this is the stuff that gets me really excited, is the climate mitigation, because this is the real do. This is transformative work, again, that takes a community to be able to do. So I generally kind of categorize this as the stuff that you do to prepare, the stuff that you do, and then the future plans that you make, because it's an ongoing cycle of work that has to be done in this field. At the city level right now, one of the things that we're working on to kind of transform the way we think about energy in the city is that we have awarded a renewable energy owner's representative contract. And that's something that this is a first of its kind thing that the city of Columbus has done, but we're asking someone to help us to, and it's Go Sustainable Energy is who is working on this with us, but we're asking them to holistically evaluate the city's property footprint. Look everywhere, look at everything we own, evaluate where renewables could be sited. Based on that, we plan to create some long-term planning for where we're going to place renewables on city facilities to operate our city facilities moving forward. So it will get Jim to some of his 1 gigawatts of solar that we need to have in Franklin County. And hopefully we'll be the city leading by example. And this is really something that can be done in our community, with our climate, and will help prepare us as a city for the future. In the do category, in the next 2 years, the City of Columbus, we had very exciting news last fall. We were named a leadership city by Bloomberg Philanthropies, and this is a real honor. We are one of 20 cities that were selected for this honor. Us in Cincinnati, in the city of Ohio, in the state of Ohio, were the 2 leadership cities in our state. And with this grant funding, we really have been challenged to accelerate the work that we're doing in the transportation sector in partnership with Smart Columbus, as you'll hear from Jordan in a moment, but also in the building sector. And then lastly, long-term planning is essential in this area. So we have begun the first steps to what will become our climate action plan that will include our mitigation work long-term. But all of this work, as I said, is not just the City of Columbus, it's all of the partner organizations having to work together on these goals. So just a few slides about the American Cities Climate Challenge. As I mentioned, this is really challenging cities to transform the way that they operate in their transportation sector and their building sectors. And so it's how you use energy and how you generate energy. And the goal is, if we do it right, then these are some really high-tech modelers that Bloomberg has hired to do this. The 20 cities that have been invited into this work will be able to reach the Paris goals that were set for the United States. So how is the City of Columbus going to do this on the city level? We've set some ambitious goals for ourselves. We set them in 2015 to reduce emissions from municipal sources by 30% and from community sources by 20%. We are well on track on the city side to reduce emissions from municipal operations, but we are challenged on the community side. That's because we're a growing community, and as a growing community, we have lots of really wonderful things that are happening here for us, but that also means that we have more people coming in who are using more energy, who are traveling more on our roads, and it's leading to increased emissions. And then right in line with the Franklin County Energy Study, we're looking to reduce energy use per capita by 20%. So we've selected 8 high-impact strategies, 4 in the transportation sector and 4 in the building sector, to focus our energy in the next 2 years. We want to do the workforce development that Jim mentioned. We want to get community energy advocates out in our communities and have them help to get people interested in the home energy audits that are offered by AEP Ohio and Columbia Gas and our partners at MORPC. We want to finance more renewable energy and energy efficiency projects through our Columbus-Franklin County Finance Authority. And we want to do significantly more home energy audits. We want to do 30,000 home energy audits in the next 2 years. And we want to also accelerate the work that our Smart Columbus is doing in the transportation sector by putting more new mobility options in place and by offering incentives for low carbon mobility options. So more to come on these things. This is definitely a dynamic document that is changing. Every day the city is becoming more ambitious in this work. But these are the 8 priority actions that we're going to be looking to environmental professionals such as yourselves and the organizations that you work for to help us to achieve these goals. Thanks.
All right, good morning. My name is Jordan Davis. I am very, very honored to work for an amazing effort called Smart Columbus. It's truly humbling. There are so many people in this room that have been a part of our journey. We wouldn't have won the Smart Cities Challenge without amazing partners like Ohio State, American Electric Power, MORPC, the county, the city of Columbus. We have students on every component of our project, whether they're interns or ambassadors for us. This is an all hands on deck effort, and we really think of Smart Columbus as a movement. It's more than a series of projects and technology deployments, but it's a culture shift. It's a platform that gets us to think bigger and bolder about our future. It's a platform that helps us encourage people to think differently about how they get around. We have a campaign that we promote drive electric and drive less. Today, I'm going to talk to you specifically about our electrification programs, but I don't want you to hear this without noting that we also have a lot of concerted effort around helping people think about how we get out of single occupant vehicle commutes and how we make transit more of a backbone to our transportation ecosystem here in Columbus. So to get started, I just want to connect why we're tackling electrification of transportation in relation to what you've heard from MORPC, Franklin County, and the city. Transportation has effectively become the #1 emitter of GHG emissions. And with that, we can, if by converting to an electric drivetrain, reduce tailpipe emissions pretty much immediately. But by leveraging that shift to a forward-thinking technology, we can start to create demand for more renewable sources so that we can have a clean energy source from generation to the transportation. So what is our goal? So we started this journey in 2015 when we were applying for the challenge, and 0.37% of all vehicles sold were electric, which put us pretty squarely tied for the last place among about a third of major cities in the United States. Today, we stand as one of the most improved players. So we are increasing EV sales greater than the national average, far greater than the Midwest average. And what that means by data is that we've sold about 1,600 cars. And so you think that that doesn't mean a lot, but actually it does from a percentage point of view. So we set a goal that we wanted to get to 1.8% of new car sales were electric by 2020. That means that we were going to increase by 500% where we started out in this journey. I'm proud to say that this quarter, and we're only about 2 years in, so in November, we hit over 2.2% of cars sold were electric. So while 1,600 doesn't sound like a lot of vehicles, proportionally, we are getting on track with our goals, and we are moving the needle here in Columbus, and we're leading the Midwest as a result. And so how do we do that? Well, we have to establish a market. And this is some things we control and some things we do not control. There are things we don't control, like historic market performance. So the fact that our market has never really bought electric vehicles shows quite a statement to automotive manufacturers who are trying to determine where to distribute this very minimal production vehicle, right? So why not just put them all in California? Why even bring them to Columbus if we have no track record of buying the product, right? And so as a result, we also don't have a lot of control on how many vehicles come here. We can influence, but at the end of the day, those aren't our decisions. What we can influence is charging infrastructure. We can create good policy to encourage where charging infrastructure goes. That's important for the population and the market base here. We can intervene in our education and awareness cycles as consumers and ensure that electrification is put up as an equal option to combustion engines. We can intervene to ensure that our dealerships are ready to sell electric vehicles in terms of training and all of that. We can also do purchase incentives, but in fact, that's not just our responsibility. Automotive manufacturing companies can also help, dealers can help, and we're going to talk about all the different interventions that we can do. So on some of the incentives in fleet purchases, so a lot of what the emissions generation is coming from in transportation is not just from the vehicles that you all drive, because you're driving about 5% of your day, but it's actually coming from our fleets. So people that are using our roads most, whether they're large freight vehicles, which is arguably the highest emitter, but also think about the Amazon drivers that are doing your 2-hour deliveries, that are driving to the warehouse and bringing it back, or your Postmates deliveries. All of these drivers in the shared and gig economy now that are using our roads more than ever are emitting more emissions than ever. So how do we get our fleets to be converting to electric? Well, a big step in that direction is by having our local governments lead the way. And I'm really proud that the city of Columbus is leading out first. They've procured and have 93 electric vehicles in operation right now, which is very exciting. But we also have commitments from Franklin County, other area municipalities in the state as well, to walk in that direction as well. Ohio State is also on a roadmap to convert more vehicles to electric. So we look forward to having 300 public fleet vehicles electric by 2020. Things we can do with incentives. So as I talked about as transportation network drivers, these are your Ubers and your Lyfts and your taxi cab drivers that are on the road idling or waiting to pick people up, but they're constantly, their engines are running. And so how can we get those tailpipe emissions to be clean? And so we have a incentive rebate that we just released at the end of last year. We've had 10 taxi drivers pick up this rebate, but our goal is to get 30 to go all electric by 2020. From a charging perspective, we've done a robust study with the National Renewable Energy Lab to look at where we should be putting charging infrastructure throughout our region. And I want to emphasize that Smart Columbus, while a lot of our programs are anchored within the city of Columbus, we have a regional scope. So we're looking at the 7-county footprint, Franklin County, and the 6 contiguous counties that sit alongside us. So American Electric Power, as part of the Smart Columbus program, filed to the Public Utilities Commission to do a pilot program in charging. So they were authorized to spend $10 million in charging infrastructure through a rebate program. And so we are shuttling as many applicants their way so that we get more than our fair share in the Columbus region installed here. The city also has a charging rebate program targeted at multi-unit dwellings, because if you don't own your energy source, it's very hard for you as the customer to be the hero in that equation, to get your landlord to install a charger. So this allows the developer to have an incentive so that they can install charging where residents and customers need it. But this is all kind of around systems change. How do we influence the thinking and the purchasing decisions of the customer? How many of you own an electric vehicle? Okay, so my equation would be, if you keep your hands up, so proud EV owners, okay, would be is how do we shift that number of people in this room? How do I get 15% more of you to drive electric? All of you, when you're going to buy a car, are gonna go through a journey in your mind about how you make that decision. And our responsibility as somebody trying to shift the market is thinking about what interventions can we deploy within that decision framework that will get you to a point where you're going to decide to go electric at the end of the day when you walk into that dealership. So the first thing is an awareness, is do you even know that electric vehicles are an option? We did an early market study where we found that we roughly understand electric vehicles in the market in Columbus, but we also have some really nuanced misunderstandings. We think that electric vehicles go further than that we actually do. We think that only 2 automotive manufacturing brands make electric vehicles. In fact, all of them make electric vehicles. We know that there's a charging station, generally. We know there's one. There's a lot more than that. So we roughly know that electric vehicles are a thing, but we don't really understand how it works for me in my daily life. So we have a lot of work to do. But what we also learned is that an initiative like Smart Columbus helps people bring them along in that journey faster than if we didn't have it. So what we found in the research was that if they knew about Smart Columbus and they knew that electric vehicles were good for Smart Columbus, they would be more likely to buy an electric vehicle as a result. So we're leveraging that brand and that initiative to develop a campaign in which we launched just this last month, targeted at people in the buying cycle. So this is a digital marketing campaign that meets you where you are. So if you were going to go to Kelly's Blue Book or any Consumer Report or frankly any automotive manufacturing site or brand, you would find that electric vehicles are not aligned equally on just in sedans. They're in their own category. So you have to go searching for an electric vehicle to find it. And so our job is, if you're looking for anything similar, we have met you with a banner ad that says, have you thought about electric? So that we can maybe help you look at other options that work for you. We are so far having great success with this, of over 200,000 direct engagements with the campaign, which means they're clicking through and learning more, and that's just in 1 month. And this will run for the duration of the year. And we do 2 things. So if you're engaging with the campaign, we'll direct you directly to a certified dealer that I'll talk about in a minute. But then we also direct you to the Smart Columbus Experience Center. This is a public space that we opened in July of this past year. We've been open for about 6 months, and we've had about 4,000 visitors come to our location to date. It's our office space, but it's also a place where you can do a no-pressure test drive. So there's no sales going on here, but it's sole education. How many of you have bought a car before? Ever? How many of you bought your car without ever test driving it? Okay, right, none of you. So test driving is a fundamental part of your buying process. So how can we ensure that you can test drive a vehicle, but then test drive multiple brands in one spot? Because oftentimes when you go to a dealership, you can try multiple sedans of different sizes and fits, but you can't try multiple EVs. So here you can, and that's a really important value proposition. But we also know that on this adoption curve, early adopters are key. Early adopters are our fastest movers right now to get to our goal. And likely those early adopters are at some of our higher paying jobs in our corporate workplaces. But we also know that at work is where you spend 80% of your time. And so if we can meet you where you are most in your work site, maybe we can also expose you to this technology and to this driving performance that you would like to buy. So we've had 48 companies adopt into or buy into a program called the Accelerator Partner Program, and they're committed to 5 5 commitments, and they work with Alex Slaymaker, who's in the back on our team, to execute this program. Some of these include buying fleets, but they also have a lot of other commitments along the way. One is what we want executives in the C-suite driving electric, because if they're driving electric, they'll call out needs for charging infrastructure at work. They'll call out and advocate for things like incentives to buy electric. And so we're very fortunate that we've had 36 executives of our 50 executive goal go electric. And our chairman, Les Wexner, is one of those. He loves his Chevy Bolt. And we're really, really proud to have the leadership of our CEOs participating in the program in this way. In addition, workplace charging is really important. We've proven through research that you're 10% more likely to drive an electric vehicle if you see an electric charging station on your way into work every day. Before we started this journey, zero of our large employers had charging at a work site. We've effectively now have 33 large employment sites that have charging. That means 200 or more people work at that site. So if you multiply that, even at the bare minimum number, that's a lot of people 10% more likely to buy an electric vehicle. And then our flagship education program is our Ride and Drive program. So we have this touring fleet of vehicles. We have about 12 electric vehicles of all different makes that we bring around to different work sites around Central Ohio. We've gone to about we've done 69 events at about 48 different sites around the region, and have facilitated about 6,900 test drives. So again, reinforcing you never bought unless you drove. We have 6,900 people that have now drove. And we'll do a double that number, about the same number this year. I'm going to skip to be fast. One of the other projects we have is the Ignite Action Fund, in which we are matching incentives from employers to encourage the change we want to see. So to encourage people to drive electric or drive less. And we're really, really satisfied with those results. And my last final points are in model availability. So I talked about the things we couldn't change, and we are changing it with relationship management and a lot of upselling of Columbus. So when we started this journey, we had 18 different electric vehicle models in inventory at some dealerships somewhere in the region. Today we have about 25, which is 61% of the national sold options, which is a big increase. And that's taken a lot of work on this team's part. And a lot of that is by electrifying our dealerships. So we have a program in which we're working with dealers directly, training their staff on how to talk about electric vehicles, how to talk about charging, and getting our dealerships as advocates to the automotive companies as well, so that they can ensure that they're supplied with an adequate amount of inventory to sell to meet the demand that we're generating. So that is just some of our program. There's a lot more, but if you want to learn anything else, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. So.
Great. Well, thank you to each of our speakers. And don't you feel a little bit better, a little bit more excited about what's happening in the region? I told you that would happen. So we've got about 10 minutes or so for questions. I figure we'll ask about 2, and then we'll open it up to the audience. And I think I want to start off with the one that's something that I think you all deal with all the time, and that's addressing skeptics. And I think I want to start with Jim. You're in economic development, and you're talking about sustainability. How do you have those conversations about climate change and about why the energy work that you're doing is important?
Thank you, William. I'd like to think of myself right now as a thorn between 2 roses.
Fair enough.
I say that because actually it's kind of a funny thing, because the reality of it is that really my motivation, and I keep pounding this home, and I want to keep pounding it home to you, is that if you're a corporation, you want your employees, you want the people that you sell your product to have a great quality of life, because they'll be happy and they'll buy more of your product, and but the reality of it is that you have to drive that, and you have to think about change. And the work that Jordan has done and Smart Columbus has done and the work that Elena is doing every day is about driving that change. And it's not necessarily an easy thing. But the point is, and again, no one in this room wants a worse quality of life for future generations than you have for yourself. So the point is that when you're talking to the corporate community, that's a powerful message right there, is that think about how you are going to adapt your product or what you sell on a daily basis to make a better quality of life. And that is the one thing that stands out in Central Ohio that we can all agree on, that we should be thinking about for our future, and we should never give up on that. We should always be having that in the back of our heads. And my argument is there's an economic development opportunity associated directly with that effort.
So Elena, you work in a really large organization, the City of Columbus, which large organizations sometimes have inertia when it comes to doing things the way they've always done it. How are you overcoming the skeptics internally with your work?
That's a great question also, William. So I think in many ways the way that Jordan mentioned they're doing things in the private sector, we are very lucky in the City of Columbus to have deeply embedded sustainability employees. And so turning those people that are embedded in their individual departments into advocates and empowering them, one of my office's tasks is to make sure that we help to remove obstacles for folks in their individual departments to getting the work done that they want to get done. And so it really is taking the individual department advocates, empowering them to have the tools in the toolbox to be able to do more.
Great. And so Jordan, one of the things that Smart Columbus I know works on a lot is overcoming, well, it's important, but the cool factor of the tech. The tech is actually contributing to sustainability. How do you have those conversations about, yeah, the tech is really cool, but here's what else it does?
Well, technology for technology's sake is just cool. Technology deployed for purpose is where we really get the outcomes that we're looking for. And so I think we, as facilitators and as good stewards of the dollars, have to make the narrative and the argument of how we are using technology to truly drive the outcomes that people are expecting. I think one of the greatest things I've taken away from Smart Columbus is how hungry our city is for change and for betterment in all areas, whether it's about creating better ladders of opportunity for our neighbors or about becoming a leader in sustainability. There are a lot of people that want to be a part of that. And I think for all of us, we have to meet their expectations. And I think that's one of the stresses of the work is Smart Columbus comes with a lot of high expectations. And I'm not sure we'll meet all of them, but we might as well. If we don't have big goals, what are we shooting for? And so I'm really proud to be a part of the work. And I think for me, I don't see us, Smart Columbus, as an organization. I see Smart Columbus as something that we're all a part of. And I really believe there's a place for everybody to fit into the answer. And so we don't always have to be the only provider of that.
Great. So to inspire you as you're thinking of your own questions, we did get 2 questions from students. So I'm going to ask the couple questions, and then we're going to open it up here. So the first one comes from Brianna Hendy, who's a master's student in the graduate program in environmental social sciences. And one of Brianna's questions is, considering that we live in an increasingly politically polarized society, how are governments and other efforts engaging the public in climate change mitigation and adaptation, but in an apolitical way? So how are you navigating the politics? And maybe, Jim, since you work for the county, you start, and we'll just go from there.
Apolitical, I think, might be trouble for me, William. I don't know.
That's why I asked you first. Yeah.
But it is really important. So the key for me was I try not to insult anybody in the process of some of the things that we're doing, but rather it's common sense, and it is the golden rule. If we live by the golden rule in a lot of ways, and the golden rule of environmentalism is something that, hopefully everybody will adopt. I'm not in a position to, sort of jam that home, but the thing is that truthfully, it is all about, me or all about us in some ways. So the idea again of just coming back to that thought of like, who wants a worse world than, for their kids than you have right now? No one does. And so that thinking, if we can be able to put that into politics and different points of views that come to the table, I think is important. But my God, the writing is on the wall, people, and you know all of that. It can't go on the way it is. I mean, the NPR story this morning about garbage in the Pacific and plastic in the Pacific, I had a chance to go to Accra, Ghana, actually with the mayor, two mayors, Mayor Coleman and Mayor Ginther. And, we think of going to South Carolina for a vacation, and we think of going to Florida for, the white sandy beaches. Well, Accra, Ghana has the most beautiful white sandy beaches, but they also have literally pyramids 20 feet high of plastic garbage on their beach. And we can't do that anymore. We have to think about how we're going to try and work together to change that. And so I'd like to be able to say, at least, that to get past some of this stuff is going to be really important. The trouble is the devil's in the details, and it comes down to how we do it. And if we try to be civil in that process, then I think we're going to advance our cause all that further. But it's a challenge, and that was such a good question. I looked at that, and I was feeling really intimidated by having a good answer for it. But
That's why I asked you first. But Jordan, what do you think?
So sometimes it's a sales pitch. So we know through a lot of our market research that environmental reasons for going electric are not the number one factor in why people are going to buy a car. It's just not going to pull the trigger in that way. And so we have to try a different narrative to get them. And so, and actually, the majority of our population thinks that way. They do not think that environmental factors are why they want to make their second most significant purchase. And so and just to say it more loud, if you're not willing to make your second most significant purchase around purposes of sustainability, we probably need to think about that as a metaphor for how we sell other initiatives as well. And so for us, we've had to take a very tech-forward approach. How do we think about electric vehicles as the vehicle of the future? And if that's the vehicle of the future and that's where all automotive is going, you have a better drive performance. And there's all of these other reasons why you get benefits for it that sells it as comparative to what they know, but in a way that's better. And so we've had to really hone in our messaging to get very direct on that so that we can appeal to a broader population.
Elena, do you want to talk?
Yeah, just one thing is, I think that we can learn a lot from our friends on the coasts. California is a great example. This is no longer a partisan issue for the state of California. They're there. They're seeing rising ocean levels. They're experiencing extreme heat. So I think it's gone beyond, it's no longer a partisan issue there. And I think in Central Ohio, we're really lucky because as the state capital, we often have opportunities where we have people from a variety of political backgrounds. And so that gets back to, I think, the beginning of what I was saying is we just have to challenge our leaders to think hard about this stuff and really think fully about it, because it is about quality of life, it is about social justice, it is about moving tech forward. There's a lot of different ways that we can address the issue.
Great. So one quick question, and then we'll open it up. And this comes from Victoria, who's a PhD student in environmental social sciences. Do local policymakers take counsel from the School of Environment and Natural Resources researchers when they're working on local problems? And I know at Morpsey we've hired them, we work with them. Elena, you've got a great answer for this. So
Yeah, so we do very strategically partner. I obviously mentioned our partnership with Polar Bird earlier, but in our Blueprint Columbus program, we're working very closely with Ohio State to help to monitor before conditions and also during and after to see if the work that we're planning to do through Blueprint to reduce total suspended solids and also to reduce sanitary sewer overflows, which is an important part of climate adaptation as well, happens. So yes, that partnership is very important, and whenever we have the opportunity, we look for chances to partner. The capstone courses have been huge for our work.
And as I said earlier in my presentation, is government can't be everything to all people. So we rely on experts and we rely on other thoughts that come to us from other places. So hopefully that is a good working relationship. Again, I think the way that you'll see Franklin County participating with you all, maybe through our partner agencies who are actually hiring people in that come out of the EPN program. But it is a very critical component to the fact that don't think government has all your answers, right? That's sort of a joke. Government doesn't have all your answers. We need to rely the same way as a corporation would on technology and technologically sound people to give them ideas and concepts. We need to rely on education institutions like Ohio State and your program to give us the best information that we can have.
So that's it. We teased you. If you thought of a great question, the speakers are going to stick around here for you. Let's give them all a round of applause.
We're sorry to wrap this up, but we really do try to get out of here by 9:30. So to keep us on schedule, we can do that. We have this room indefinitely, so if please keep the conversation going and visit amongst yourselves. As is our tradition, we'd like to give a certificate of appreciation to each of our guests.
Wow.
I'm going to just hand this to you. Yeah, because
Thank you.
we'll hand those out in a sec, but please turn in the back of your program to see upcoming EPN events. One of the reasons we're pushing to sort of like allow a minute here is we'd like to show a video of what our next presentation is. One of the things that we've taken very seriously in the school is the importance of diversifying the movement. While the environmental rhetoric might not resonate with everybody, it's important that we include a broader array of folks in our coalition that are working on these issues. In spirit of that, we are doing at our next event, Marcelo Bonta, founder of the Center for Diversity and the Environment in Portland, Oregon, and a national leader and facilitator on the topic of pursuing equity and inclusion within environmental organizations, will be doing a presentation as well as a series of workshops. We now have a video of Marcelo, just to give you a little tease.
Hello, Ohio State and the Environmental Professionals Network. I am so honored and excited to be joining you for a couple of days next month. My name is Marcelo Bonta. I work to create a more just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive environmental movement. As some of you may have noticed, that justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, the acronym is JEDI, which has become a favorite term of mine in this work. I'm also the proud founder of the Center for Diversity and the Environment and the Environmental Professionals of Color Network. I can't wait to speak to you about the critical importance of JEDI, to talk about the why and the how and the ways we could really advance this work. And what will it take for both you on an individual level and me to continue to be effective at JEDI work. I will also be leading a couple of workshops, one focusing on the organizational level. We'll assess where you are, talk about strategies and tactics to advance the work at your organization, as well as connect the work to a change management process. I will also lead a workshop focusing on individual work. I will support you in building your knowledge and skills to effectively work across difference, as well as how you can effectively advance on an individual level, how you can effectively advance your organization and the movement as a whole. I am also very, very much looking forward to working with students, especially students of color, providing tips and wisdom around surviving, thriving, leading, and innovating in the environmental movement. One of my favorite sayings is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I am so much looking forward to be out there with you, so together we could advance and create the change that's badly needed in the environmental movement. Can't wait to be there. See you soon.
If any of you have an interest in your organization sending people to this event, please talk to us if you'd be interested in sponsoring. We have a number of organizations that are sending their entire staff to our workshops that are taking place that day. Our attitude at the school, in terms of we've really made this a priority, is if we're going to move the movement forward, we need to bring more people to the table. We cannot continue to have the conversation amongst ourselves, and that's just not in diversity in terms of race and ethnicity, but we also need to think about rural-urban differences as well. So we need to bring this community together and sort of make this a nonpartisan issue. So this is our effort to sort of move that dialogue forward. Last save the date for March 4th, we continue our annual collaboration with the Water Management Association of Ohio, the Ohio Water Resource Center, and the Terra Aqua Student Organization to host a panel conversation on emerging water contaminants. It's wonderful having you all here today. Please continue the conversation, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.